Good afternoon, Randy. Let me back it up a little bit. Good afternoon, you all. Good afternoon. Make sure you have your week 5 packet. Good afternoon, Miss Eastside. Good afternoon, Elizabeth. Good afternoon, Torian. Good afternoon, Sanaya. Good afternoon, you all. Good afternoon, Lamia and Christina. Good afternoon, Malik. Good afternoon, you all. Good afternoon, Darren. Good afternoon, Joe. Good afternoon, Marquette. I think that's Namaya. Good afternoon, Namaya. Good afternoon, Kwalik. Thank you, Darren, for getting started right away. Good afternoon, Tyler. Thank you, Elizabeth, for getting started. If you haven't done so already, read the warm-up question on the screen and put your answer in. Good afternoon. Warm-up question number 1. What is genetic variation? What is genetic variation? Put your answer in the comment section below. We have 2 answers so far. Moving forward to the next question in about 40 seconds. I have 3, 4 answers. Thank you. 5. Great job. I have a lot of B's. I have a few A's. Good afternoon. Make sure you have your week 5 packet. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Make sure you have your week 5 packet. Thank you, Damaya, for putting your answer. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Sanaya. Keep them coming, y'all. Keep them coming. Make sure you have your week 5 packet. Now, if you weren't in class last time on Wednesday, we did start the week 5 packet then, and we got through the first 4 pages. We will be reviewing those 4 pages quickly at the start of today's class, and then we're jumping into the rest of the packet. So today, we're going to be finishing the entire packet for the most part. We might not get to the last page, but we're going to try and finish the entire packet today. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. All right, moving on to question number 2. Thank you, Isaiah, for jumping in and getting started right away. Question number 2. What is natural selection? What is natural selection? Is it A, the process where animals kill each other? B, the process where organisms with genes suited for the environment survive better? Or is it C, the process where organisms have to blend in with their environment? What is natural selection? What is natural selection? All right, I got 1 answer so far. 2. Keep them coming, y'all. Keep them coming. And again, we're going to get started shortly. Make sure you have your week 5 packet. If you don't have the packet for week 5, make sure you have paper and a pencil. You can write the questions down and write the answers down. And if you need to go back to any questions, I can do so. Just make sure you put it in the comment section. And also, I always post this session. Good afternoon, Daquan. I always post this session in my story, so it'll be there for 24 hours in case you miss any of the questions. You can always go back and replay it. Good afternoon. All right, we got 5 answers so far. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Torian. Thank you, Destiny. Thank you, Isaiah. I need to figure out who this is. I got somebody else who put a B. Great job. Thank you, Genesis. Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, moving on to the last question, the last warm-up question. Our last warm-up question. Question number 3. Which of the following is an example of an adaptation? Which of the following is an example of an adaptation? A monkey liking bananas, lizards being cold-blooded, or polar bears having fur and layers of fat? Which of the following will be an example of an adaptation? Good afternoon, my love. Would it be A, monkeys liking bananas, B, lizards being cold-blooded, or C, polar bears having fur and layers of fat? Which of the following is an adaptation? I have 2 answers so far. Thank you, Kwalik. Thank you, Randy. So far, I have 2 C's. Keep them coming, y'all. Keep them coming. What do you think is an adaptation? Which of these do you think is an adaptation? If you get it wrong, it's okay. It's just a warm-up question. It is just a warm-up question. I have 5 answers so far. Great job. Keep them coming, y'all. Keep them coming. Good afternoon, my love. And a reminder, we're in that week 5 packet. I have 7 answers so far. All right, we're going to move forward in 30 seconds. If you haven't put your answer in for the warm-up question, go ahead and do so. If you would like to join today's live, you do get double the points as always towards your grade. So if you would like to join today's live, go ahead and send a request or just wave a hand in the comment section so I know to invite you. Again, if you want to join the live, you get double the points. So go ahead and send that request at this time or wave a hand in the comment section. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
All right, let's get started. So we are on that week 5 packet. We're talking about natural selection and how genetic variation can lead to natural selection. So we're still talking about genetics in a sense. Can you read this objective to us, please, and help us break it down?
By the end of the lesson, doctors will be able to explain, model, and analyze genetic adaptations in order to evaluate natural selection.
All right, and how many verbs do we have in here?
4.
All right, and what are those 4 verbs?
Explain, model, analyze, and evaluate.
Beautiful. What does it mean to explain?
To tell.
Close,
To
different T. To teach. What about model? What does it mean to model?
Show.
To show. What does it mean to analyze?
Break down.
To break down, and then what does it mean to evaluate?
Judge.
Great job. Now, can you give it to us with the definitions in place of the verbs?
By the end of the lessons, doctors will be able to teach, show, and break down genetic adaptation in order to judge natural selection.
All right, beautiful job. So going back into our warm-up question number 1 was, what is genetic variation? Which answer was correct?
B.
You said B, a lot of different genes. You are correct. Most of you all had B. That is correct. Genetic variation is a lot of different genes. Now, some of y'all put A. A mistake in our DNA is called a genetic mutation. Those are mutations, but a genetic variation is having a lot of different genes. Good afternoon, Alicia. All right, question number 2, warm-up question number 2. It said, what is natural selection? What's the correct answer?
I said B.
You said B as in boy, the process where organisms with genes suited for the environment survive better. That is correct. Most of you all had B, so that is correct. Great job. And then question 3, which of the following is an example of an adaptation?
I picked C.
C is correct. Polar bears having fur and layers of fat is an adaptation. It's something that's genetically tuned inside of them that helps them to survive in their environment. It helps them survive in cold areas. C was correct for number 3. All right, moving forward. Today's lesson. Oh, one more question before I missed it. I'll come back to it. Today's lesson is going to be broken down into 2 parts. So we're going to start by reviewing, and I'm going to lean on you heavily for our review, especially since you helped me out a lot last week. And then we're going to go into completing the rest of the packet. So we're going to review the pages that say day 1 and 2 on top, because we did those last Wednesday. And we're going to be completing the pages that say day 3 and day 4 today. That'll be our new material for today. All right, so we talked about the fact that we are organisms. An organism is a living thing. And if you think about living things, you can group them into groups called species. And species are a group of similar living things. So when you think of species, we talked about you can have a species like a black bear. You have polar bears. You have grizzly bears. They're all bears. All 3 are types of bears, but they're different species of bears. They're different groups of similar living things. You also have different species. These are all different types of monkeys, but you have different species of those monkeys. So here you have a chimpanzee, you have an orangutan, you have a baboon. All of these are different types of species or different species of monkey. Now, most of these organisms that we're focusing on now use sexual reproduction. We talked about sexual reproduction has 2 parents. As a mom, it has a dad, and you get half the DNA from the mom, half the DNA from the dad. And because you get half from one and half from the other, you end up with a unique mix of genes, meaning that every individual has its own unique mix of genes, meaning that there'll be genetic variety or genetic variation. So everybody will look similar because they'll have some of the same genes, but they'll also have some genes that other people don't have. They'll have a unique mix. Some species, you'll notice crossbreed, meaning that one type of one type of species might breed with another type of species, but they typically stay with similar species. So one species of squirrel may breed with another species of squirrel, but then you won't see a lot of crossbreeding amongst completely different animals most of the time, unless it is done purposely in a lab. So you end up with something called genetic variation, like I said. And genetic variation, like we said in our warm-up, is just having a lot of different types of genes. Now, when you look at a population or a group of organisms in a community or an environment, you're going to see a lot of different genetic variation. Looking at these giraffes here, we said last time, the difference between them was they had a lot of different colors. Even though they're all giraffes, even though they all have long necks, they had different color spots. And again, that's because they have different genes. Same thing here. If you notice, there are different species of butterfly here on this image, but even within the same species, like right here, these two right here, even within that same species, you have some differences because you have genetic variation, different genes amongst the same species. So going into our packet, if you looked at the first page of the packet, it said, day one engage phenomena. And the first question they asked you, why do some traits of the same species vary? And some answers that you all gave me are here on the screen. So you got, I think, Randy, you were the one that said the dominant traits might overrule the recessive traits. I added in that you also have to think about the fact that we have sexual reproduction. So you're going to get unique genes from that. And then you also have crossbreeding. So those are the three answers that you should have for question number 1 on that first page. Good afternoon for those of y'all who just joined us. Again, we're in that week 5 packet. And right now we are reviewing the first 4 pages because we did that last Wednesday. So we're just going back through that, and then we're going to complete the rest of the packet today too. So again, for question 1, we said the dominant traits might overrule the recessive traits, and you also have sexual reproduction and crossbreeding, which is why we have some species that are the same species, but they have different traits. So for those of you who are confused, I think I have one person in the comment section said they don't see it. We are in the week 5 packet, and we're on the page that looks like this. We're on the page that looks like this, the first question. Okay? Now going back into our PowerPoint, question number 2 asks you, question number 2, can y'all see my screen? Randy, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 2 asks you to come up with questions of your own. So whatever questions you could come up with, write those questions down for question number 2. Now, question number 3, we had to start talking about something else, something called natural selection. So in natural selection, it's a process where organisms that are adapted to their environment tend to survive and produce more offspring. So that's a fancy way of just saying the organisms that have the genes that help them survive in that environment are going to survive and make babies, whereas the organisms that don't have the genes to survive in that environment are not going to make babies. So we talked about the fact that some people have the sickle cell gene, which leads to the sickle cell disease. And if you have the gene within you, you're immune to malaria. So that was an adaptation that was beneficial in areas like Africa, where you have a lot of mosquitoes that carry malaria. But in other areas, it might not be as beneficial when you don't really live in a population where you have to deal with malaria. Another adaptation that we talked about is melanin. So melanin is that thing in our skin, that pigment in our skin that makes us darker, and it helps to protect from UV rays from the sun. So helps to protect us from skin cancer. Now, I'm not saying that if you have melanin in your skin, you can't get skin cancer. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it helps to protect us from skin cancer. So that was another adaptation that was beneficial. Another adaptation that you all have to think about or another thing that you have to think about is some genes are not favored. So when you think about people who have polydactyly, which is a mutation that causes people to have 6 fingers, that may not be favored in the population. You may not find that attractive. So you may find that people who tend to have 6 fingers, they may have a harder time mating. And so they typically don't reproduce, or they may not reproduce as often as those who have 5 fingers. So an adaptation is any change in the structure or function of an organism or any of its parts that help the organism become better fitted to survive and multiply in its environment. So again, adaptation is anything that's going to help you do better or help you survive in your environment. Any kind of genetic trait that helps you survive in your environment. So we talked about the fact that hawks have sharp claws so they can catch their prey in midair. Ducks and frogs have webbed feet so they can survive in water and on land. Roses have thorns to protect them. We said rabbits have big ears so they can hear predators coming and get away. And cactus, they have long roots so that they can get water from faraway places. And they also have needles to protect them from being eaten. So those are some different adaptations. So then we start talking about the fact that iguanas also can camouflage, which means they can blend in with their environment. We have sharks, which have sharp teeth so they can kill their prey and they can swim extremely fast. They also have something called a swim bladder, which helps them to float in water. So then in your packet, it went to this section here. We're now moving on to reviewing this section right here. So in your packet, Randy, we talked about this section. They gave us a javelina, which is this pig-like animal here, and they gave us cacti, right? And we went through several questions. So can you remind us for question 1, can you read the question and give us the answer, please?
What do you observe about this picture in picture 1?
Okay, and what answer did you have?
One cactus has spines or needles and the other one doesn't.
Great job. So he said one cactus has needles and the other one does not. So if you were not paying attention or you were not with us last Wednesday when we went over this, that's what you should be writing down for question 1. One cactus has needles and one cactus does not. Again, one cactus has needles and one cactus does not. Moving on to question number 2. Can you read the question and give us your answer again, Randy?
What is the difference between picture 1 and picture 2? The Javelina is eating the cactus without needles and the other one is not being eaten.
All right, great job. I like how you articulated that. So the Javelina is eating the cactus without needles and it's not bothering or touching the other cactus. So we're on this page right here. This page right here. So in your week 5 packet, this is the first page that has questions in the science section. And we're on this section right here. They gave you this image, these 4 images here, and then they asked you a series of questions. It's the same questions, we just put them in PowerPoint format. Again, we're on this page right here. We're on that first page in the science section of week 5's packet. All right, moving forward, question number 3. Question number 3. Read the question and give us your answer, please.
Why is the Javelina not eating the cactus on the right? It's because the cactus has needles to protect itself.
All right, great job. Because the cactus on the right had needles to protect itself. Because the cactus on the right had needles to protect itself. Because the cactus on the right had needles to protect itself. So we're on question 3. It says, why is the Javelina not eating the cactus on the right? So if you look on that second page now, question number 3 right there says, why is the Javelina not eating the cactus on the right? That's the question we just answered. Randy told us the cactus on the right has needles to protect itself. So we're answering these questions. We just put it in a PowerPoint format so it's easier to see the image and the question at the same time. So again, question 3, Randy just told us the cactus on the right has needles to protect itself. All right, and then question 4. Read us the question and give us your answer, please.
What happens to the cactus the Javelina was eating by picture 4? The cactus has died, and then the other cactus on the right has dropped another cactus and made a baby.
All right, so the cactus with no needles, or the cactus without needles has died, and the cactus that had needles has reproduced. I can do 1 and 2 again. I can do that again. Give me 1 second. So for question 4, the cactus without needles has died, and the cactus with needles has reproduced. Again, question 4, the cactus without needles has died, and the cactus with needles has reproduced. Randy, we have somebody, and I love the honesty and transparency, so thank you. We have somebody who needs us to go back to question 1 and 2. Question 1, it said, what do you observe in picture 1? What did you observe again in picture 1, Randy?
One cactus had needles and the other one didn't.
One cactus had needles for question 1 and the other one did not. One cactus had needles and the other one did not. And then question 2. What is the difference between picture 1 and picture 2, Randy?
The javelina ate the cactus without needles, and the other one didn't get eaten.
Beautiful job. So the difference between picture 1 and picture 2 is the javelina ate the one without needles and didn't touch the one that did have needles. Again, for number 2, the javelina ate the one without needles and didn't touch the one that had needles. I can do number 3 again. Give me 2 seconds. All right, and then question number 3 says, why is the javelina not eating the cactus on the right? Randy told us it was because the one on the right had needles to protect itself. The cactus on the right had needles to protect itself. The cactus on the right had needles to protect itself. All right, for those of y'all speaking Spanish in the comment section, stay focused. All right, moving forward. So we did question 4, question 5. Randy, can you read the question and give us your answer, please?
What is different about the cactus the javelina was not eating in the picture? In picture 3, it is alive and it has an extra one.
All right, and we said it grew what?
What do you mean?
In picture 3, what did it grow?
Oh, flowers.
It grew flowers. So that was the main difference. So we said that in picture 3, it grew flowers. If you didn't notice, because I know your copies are black and white and that might be hard to see. In picture 3, the cactus that the javelina was not eating, it grew flowers. In picture 3, it grew flowers. All right, question number 6. How do plants use flowers, Randy?
They use them to reproduce.
They use them to reproduce. They use the flowers to reproduce. Good afternoon, my love. They use them to reproduce. Yes, Kwalik, no Spanish. Y'all stay focused. They use them to reproduce. Question number 7. What is different about picture 4? You kind of hit on this earlier. What is different about picture 4?
It has
It reproduced, so it has an offspring. It has a seedling in the ground there. If you notice that little piece right there, it has an offspring. In picture 4, it has an offspring. In picture 4, it has an offspring. All right, question number 8 is a long question, and it pretty much asks us, what is the different trait the surviving cactus has? So what made the surviving cactus different again, Randy?
It had needles.
It had needles. So question 8, it had needles. It had needles. Yes, it did grow another cactus. Thank you. It had needles. Question 8, it had needles. Question number 9, again, was another long question, but they pretty much wanted to know, how did the different trait help the cactus survive and reproduce? So how did having needles help that cactus survive?
It didn't. Oh, the javelin didn't want to eat it because it would hurt him.
Beautiful job. So for question 9, you should have the javelina did not want to eat that cactus because it would hurt that cactus, because it would hurt the javelina. The javelina did not want to eat that cactus because it would hurt the javelina. We on week 5 packet. Week 5 packet. It protected the cactus from being eaten. Great job. I love the fact that some of y'all are still participating in the comment section. For those of y'all just paying attention, thank you. All right, and we're almost done with our review. Question number 10. Question number 10 pretty much asks, how do you know that the different trait was passed on to the next generation?
Oh, the little cactus has spikes.
All right, so you can observe that the small cactus or the offspring has spikes or needles as well. You can observe that the offspring has needles as well. You can observe that the offspring has needles as well. That's the answer you should have for question number 10. If you have anything different, change it. You can observe that the offspring has needles as well. All right, and then we went through these 3 scenarios, and I'm not going to go through these during our review. What I am going to do again is post my storyboards up on a class Instagram page, but they gave us 3 scenarios and asked us to come up with cartoons for those 3 scenarios. The first scenario is the only one I'm going to kind of touch on. So they gave us 2 giraffes. One had a long neck and one had a short neck. And the long neck giraffe was able to eat from the higher leaves on the trees, whereas the short neck giraffe couldn't reach the taller trees. And eventually those shorter trees died out. So all that was left was the taller trees. And so eventually the giraffe with the shorter neck died out. So my storyboard looked like this. We started out with 2 giraffes, one with a long neck and one with a short neck. Eventually you see them eating trees. You see that you have some short neck giraffes here. You have a long neck giraffe here, and they're eating from higher up trees. These are eating from smaller trees or looking for smaller trees. Once there was no smaller trees, the short neck giraffes or giraffes with the shorter necks died out, whereas the one with the long neck survived. So again, they're asking you to come up with a cartoon that has 3 steps to it, and it should look something like that. Now, I use the website called Storyboard That. You're more than welcome to use that same website, but make sure that you have something on your paper. You have something that you can turn in or submit. Yeah, a picture is fine. If you do Storyboard That, you can take a picture of what you did online and submit that. Or if you just drew it, that's fine as well. So we're going to jump into what we're doing for today. So today, okay, we did this table as well. So again, if you have questions about what we did last Wednesday, make sure you DM me. Anybody have any questions before we move on to the new content? If you're ready to move forward, give me a thumbs up. If you have questions, let me know. Yes, send the pictures to the class Instagram. Direct message them to the class Instagram, or you can email them to my email, which is also posted on the class Instagram page. If you're ready to move forward, send me a thumbs up. If you need me to go back, let me know. I got 1 thumb, 2 thumbs, 3 thumbs, 4 thumbs, 5 thumbs. All right. So it seems like for the most part, we're ready to move forward. I'm at 6 thumbs, 7 thumbs. All right, let's move forward. All right, so the pre-reading activity. So we are on the page that looks like this. So they had an article in there they wanted you all to read, and they gave you 3 questions before you started reading that article. And the first question, I took the questions and I put them on a PowerPoint, so they're exactly the same. The first question says, what organisms do you see in the photos? And I know it might have been a little hard for you to all to see, so I made sure I highlighted them in the pictures on the PowerPoint. So what do you see in the photos, Randy?
I see, is that a chameleon?
So it's not necessarily a chameleon. Let's just be generic. It's a what?
Lizard.
A lizard. So you see a lizard doing what?
Sitting on a branch.
Okay, so you see in the green one, you see a lizard sitting on a branch. What about in the gray picture?
I think he's in the sand.
All right. So I couldn't tell whether that was sand or rock. You might be right. It might be sand. But for question 1, you should have that you see a lizard sitting on a branch and you see a lizard. And again, I'm not sure if that's rock or if it's sand. You can put either or, it's fine. So for the pre-reading activity, question 1, you should have, I see lizards on a branch and in sand, or I see lizards on a branch and in a rock. It's up to you. You see lizards camouflaging. Thank you, Darren. Elizabeth, you see lizards. Qualique sees lizards. Marquette put camouflaging. All right, great job. Again, details are helpful. Moving on to question 2. What adaptations do they have to live in these areas? So what adaptation would you say they have, Randy?
The color that they are.
All right, so their skin color is an adaptation that helps them survive there because it helps them to camouflage, like 2 of you all previously mentioned. So what adaptations do they have to live in these areas? The color of their skin is an adaptation. The color of their skin helps them to survive there. So it's a green lizard right here. I know he's kind of hard to see, especially in the black and white papers. And then there was a gray lizard or a gray and brown lizard right here. And again, their skin helps them to camouflage in their environment. That was the answer to number 2. And then number 3, what similarities do they share? What similarities do they share?
They're both camouflaged to match their surroundings.
They both match their surroundings. So they're both camouflaged to match their surroundings. Question number 3, they are both camouflaged to match their surroundings. jump into some text, right? So you can also say yes, they are both lizards. That is also true. They are both, and they can both camouflage. Great job again. I love the fact that you're still participating in the comment section. Great job, y'all. All right. So they asked us to read a text. So I'm going to actually come out of this PowerPoint and go to the article. And in this article, they gave us some vocab, and then they gave us some different scenarios to make it applicable. So Randy, I'm going to ask you to read it for us. And as he's reading, please follow along because there are questions in the text that you were supposed to answer. Go ahead.
Natural selection is a popular theory proposed by Charles Darwin in the 1850s. The theory suggests that species change over time because organisms with traits are well suited, or organisms with traits well suited to their environments have greater success surviving and reproducing. Charles Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection changed the way we understand diversity of life.
All right, great job. Keep going.
Natural selection, the theory that organisms with traits that are well suited to their environment survive and reproduce more successfully.
So again, natural selection is not just that the ones that nature doesn't like just automatically die out. They try to survive and they're unable to survive. And because they're unable to survive, they're also unable to reproduce. But the other organisms in that species are able to survive and they're able to reproduce. So you're able to see more of them over generations. Natural selection is not something that you'll see happen typically in one lifetime. It happens over a long time period. We're on that first page in the article, Kwalik, in case you need to reference it. I know it's a little blurry. Keep reading for us, please, Randy.
Organisms have inherited characteristics or traits. Dogs inherit their fur color. Birds inherit their wingspan. Trees inherit their leaf type. Genes control these traits. They're passed down to offspring by parents. Some traits help an organism survive, find a mate, protect itself, or find food and shelter. Some factors encourage the natural selection to take place.
All right, so now they're going to give us 3 factors that encourage natural selection. Pay attention because after we finish reading this text, we have to fill in the table and we have to complete a graphic organizer where they're going to refer back to these 3 factors. All right, so what's the first factor?
Genetic variation.
Okay.
Differences among individuals with the same species are called genetic variation. Beetles in the image on the left are vary in red and yellow color. Red beetles tend to get eaten by birds, therefore fewer red beetles stay alive to reproduce. The genetic variation in color proved to be favorable to the yellow and not favorable to the red beetles. The traits that are more favorable to species are more likely to be passed on from generation to generation. This increases the species' chances of survival. This is a cause and effect relationship between the variation of traits and probability that specific organisms will be able to survive and reproduce.
All right, so genetic variation, again, that's similar to the fact that you may have a sibling and you and your sibling will look somewhat alike, but you all will have slight differences because there's genetic variation amongst you and your siblings. We are all typically, most of us are African Americans, but we do not look exactly the same. We're not the same height. We don't all have the same hair texture. We don't all have the same skin complexion. Again, that is genetic variation. Continue reading, please, sir.
Overproduction, that's what it is. If a species produces more offspring than the environment can support, many of the offspring will not survive into adulthood.
All right, so again, if a species makes too many, then many will not survive. You have to think about the fact that if you're on an island, or if the species is on an island and there's only so much water, there's only so much food, there's only so much space, there's only gonna be so many of that species that are gonna be able to thrive and survive. The rest will die out because they don't have what they need. And also you have to think about the fact that with overproduction, you have to you're constantly competing. So can you read the next factor, please? Competition.
Since the resources such as food, water, and space are limited, offsprings must compete for resources to survive. Individuals with traits that give them a competitive advantage are more likely to reproduce.
Good perseverance. All right, so think of it this way. When you think about a cheetah versus a zebra, A cheetah can run faster than a zebra, so that cheetah has an advantage. When you think about organisms that might be stronger than other organisms, they have an advantage. They're going to be able to outcompete certain organisms. Some organisms have protective mechanisms. Some organisms just have brute strength that helps them compete. Can you continue reading, please? They're going to give us some scenarios.
In other words, natural selection leads to the predominance of certain traits in a population and the suppression of others. When those traits change over time, through many generations in response to changes in environmental conditions, scientists call a process adaptation. In the example of the beetle color above, the yellow beetle or the yellow color trait supported successful survival and reproduction in the new environment. Yellow beetles became more common as the red beetles were eaten and became less common. The type of adaptation by natural selection is how the distribution of traits in a population changes.
All right, great job. So now they want to know, what do you think? So I'm going to read this part. How do you respond to environmental changes? What kind of clothing would you need to go sledding on a snowy day? Maybe you only ride your bike during certain times of the year. What if you move to a much colder part of the world? You would probably need a new set of clothes for the new environment. You would probably have to change some of your daily routines and activities. I'm going to continue reading down. All organisms need to adapt to changes in their environment. Sometimes the environment naturally changes, making one trait more favorable than another, but sometimes humans can trigger a change. Recall that changes in a species' appearance or behavior over generations are adaptations. The mechanism driving these changes are natural selection. Natural selection most often works by taking advantage of genetic variation among individuals in a population. Some individuals survive better in particular environmental conditions than other individuals of the same species. Those better adapted will survive and will be able to produce offspring. They will pass on their traits to the next generation, which improves their offspring's chances of survival. Over time, the characteristics of a whole population change. So again, that paragraph was just a fancy way of saying the organisms that have the genes that are going to help them survive in a certain environment will survive in that environment. The organisms that don't have the genes to help them survive in that environment, or the organisms that have the genes that would be weaker compared to some others in that environment, do not survive in that environment. Now, fossils of stickleback fish show evidence of natural selection. Stickleback fish have been around for millions of years. Sticklebacks have spines on their backs to protect them. However, growing spines requires energy and the presence of minerals in the water. Comparing ancient fossils to more recent fossils shows a decrease in the number of spines. Scientists infer that predators were rare in the ancient lakes. Therefore, fish with fewer spines survived to reproduce. Can you read to us deer mice camouflage, please?
Deer mice are widespread and live in a variety of North American habitats. They are active at night and mostly eat seeds. Predators include snakes, owls, and other raptors. The Sandhills landform in Nebraska was deposited by the glaciers within the last 10,000 years. The soils of the Sandhills are much lighter than the soils in other parts of the state. Almost all of the mice living in the Sandhills are light colored. However, deer mice in the rest of the state were dark colored. The light color allows them to blend in with the sandhill soil and be less visible to predators. A small change in the genetic material of deer mice is responsible for the change in color and successful color adaptation.
Keep going.
A population of light-colored mice was moved from the sandhills to a wooded area with dark soils. What do you think would happen to the population after 10,000 years or longer?
All right, I want you all in the comment section, type your answers. What do you think would happen to the population after 10,000 years or longer? So if we took those deer mice that typically lived in a light colored sand, we put them in an area where there's darker sand, what would happen to the population? All right, so one person said they would get darker. Stay focused, y'all. Stay focused. They would change color. They might go extinct. Okay. They will look different. So all of those are viable answers. So you can put either of those three. They might go extinct. They might change color. They may not get mates. Okay, so they would go extinct. They would get darker. Either of those is an answer that would suffice. They would get darker. They would change color. They might go extinct. All of those are fine. They would die out. All right, moving down. Field mustard adapts to drought. Field mustard is an annual plant that grows wild in many regions of the world. It has small yellow flowers and is pollinated by insects. Field mustard has to flower and produce seeds to give rise to the next generation. Southern California experienced a severe drought between 2000 and 2004. Plants that flowered earlier reproduced. Those that flowered later died without producing seeds. This led to more early flowering field mustard plants. This change in population characteristics took only a few generations. How do you think scientists discovered that the flowering time of the field mustard had changed? In the comment section, again, type your answer. How do you think the scientists discovered the flowering time of the field mustard had changed? In the comment, type your answer to this question right here. How do you think scientists discovered that the flowering time of the field mustard had changed? Okay, because the plant started to die out. Because they said it was annual, so the time it bloomed probably changed. I like that as well. I'm going to give a few more people some time to type their answers in. Then maybe they did an experiment and they observed it. Maybe the plant started to die out. They might have studied it every day. So the answer I'm going to encourage you all to go with is similar to what Darren said, but it's closer to what Randy said. So Randy said because it was annual, so it probably bloomed the same time every year. And then Darren said they probably discovered it by studying it every day. They probably didn't have to study it every day, but again, most flowers do have a typical season or time period within a year when they typically bloom. So by analyzing the time that that the flowers were blooming over the years, they can assess that the flowering time had changed. So for that question, if they analyzed the time that the field mustard started blooming over the years, they'll notice the change. So again, if they analyze the times the field mustard started blooming over the years, they notice the change. Now they might have done this by using a graph. They might have been graphing when it blooms every year. They might have just been writing a list. But if they analyze the time every year, they notice the change. All right, so here's where we are going to stop. But what I want you all to do, again, this is fourth quarter. All of this, week 4's packet, week 5's packet, all of it counts towards your fourth quarter grade. I want you all for homework. I want you all to finish reading the text if you haven't already done so. Answer this question here that says, what do you think? And then I want you to try and fill in this table as well as this graphic organizer. We will go over these parts and we'll pick up where we left off on Wednesday. And then we'll finish the week 5 packet on Wednesday. But again, I want you to try and finish the question built into the article here. That question says, what do you think people spray pesticides on crops? And then I also want you to try and fill in this table here at the end of the article, along with the graphic organizer that's based on the article. Does anybody have any questions before we wrap up for today? Again, this is for your fourth quarter grade. Week 4 packet and the week 5 packet are for your fourth quarter grade. Any questions? All right. If you do have questions, make sure you just send me a direct message and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I've also been posting some additional assignments on the class Instagram page. Try your best to get to some of those assignments and get some of those done. Try and do at least 2 a week so you can get the points for your grade. If you don't do the extra assignments, then you're not going to be getting those points towards your grade. And yes, we will be going over everything. So we'll pick up exactly from where we left off. So we'll pick up here on Wednesday and we'll go over these parts, but I'm expecting you all to have already answered it. And for those of you who I'll just ask the homework again, read the rest of the article, answer the question that's built into the article, and then complete the table at the end and the graphic organizer. Anything that says days 3 and 4, except for the last part where it says evaluate. All right. You all have a phenomenal day. Randy, thank you. Thank you. You get double the points for joining in. And make sure that you all stay safe. Don't get on your parents' nerves. Do your work and study. Don't spend too much time watching TV. Actually get active. Do something. Try it and learn new skills. And again, if you have questions, make sure you just send me the question in my direct message. And the good question, Lisbeth, the homework is due by Wednesday. The homework is due by Wednesday. If you do it before we go on live on Wednesday, send me a picture so you can get the extra points for doing the homework. If you do the homework before we go live on Wednesday, send me a picture to my direct message so you can get the points for doing the homework. Yes, you can take a picture and send it to me. That'll be perfect. All right, y'all. Love you. Be safe.
Bye.
Bye, Randy.